Do you want to become a homeowner, but you're not exactly sure how the whole process works? Well, you are in the right spot because in this video, I'm going to break down every step of the home buying process so that way you know where to start and how you can reach the home buying milestone. Hey, I'm Ryan Temmel with Milestone Realty, and I help people buy, sell, and relocate across the Twin Cities metro area. In this video today, as we break down the home buying process, if you find out you have some questions about things that I cover and want me to clarify, you can text, call, or email me, and my info is in the description below. You can also download this guide that we are going to be going through by clicking the link that's in the bio or heading to my website, mymilestonerealty.com/buyer's guide, and you can download it there. If you want a hard copy and you locally live in Minnesota, I can meet up with you to drop it off so that way you can have a physical copy to write in and go through physically as well. I know some people prefer that method rather than a digital copy. So if that's you, reach out to me and we'll schedule a time for me to come and drop it off. Let's dive into my home buyer guide, which is a document that I've worked really hard on to give as much educational and helpful information as possible and make it as clear and easy to understand so that way anybody can know what this process looks like. So in this document, I have obviously a table of contents here that just tells you what's on each page. There is a section just kind of giving you more information about who I am. I'm not going to dive into that today. And then this page talks about how am I different from all the other realtors around town and some things that I do to try to differentiate myself. Again, I'll go through that in maybe a different video, but for today, we'll skip that. And these are testimonials from clients. I will also have a link in the description to more reviews of other clients as well, if you care to read through those. So here is what we are going to be diving into, which is the home buying timeline. So step one, we're going to be covering the pre-approval process, what that is, what it looks like. Step two is the home search process. How do we do that? What does that look like? What happens? Step three is getting a home under contract. How do we do that? And then once we do, what are the steps that are going to happen once we have an accepted offer? And ultimately, that way it can lead us to closing and officially becoming a homeowner and reaching that home buying milestone. And then finally, step five is obviously moving in. I have some tips and tricks in case you've never moved into a home before, just some things that you might want to be thinking about as you get ready to do that. So let's start with step number one, the pre-approval. Now, what is a pre-approval and why does it matter? Well, this is for people who are not going to be able to buy a home with cash. So if you don't have enough cash on hand to purchase the home outright, you're going to need to get financing, which is going to be true for about 98% of people. So in order to get financing, we're going to have to go to a bank or a lender, and we're going to have to give them information, and they are going to determine what is the amount of money that they are going to loan us or lend us. And so to do this, you're going to have to fill out an application. Then you're going to need information like things like your bank statement, your credit card statements, your tax returns, your W-2 stubs, or like income verifications. They're going to want to know your debts. So if you have car payments or loans, if you have student loans, all of that information you're going to have to give them. And then what they are going to do is determine, based on that, what your DTI, which stands for debt to income ratio. So if you have a lot of debt and not a very high income, they're probably not going to give you a super high loan amount, or they might not even pre-approve you and say, we can't give you a loan currently. If you have a super high income and very low debt, you're going to get pre-approved for a lot more, or have the ability to get pre-approved for a lot more. So as you start going through this process, they are going to be determining what that amount is. Now, you might get pre-approved and it's for a much higher amount and a monthly payment that you don't want to pay. So it's much higher than what you're wanting to pay. That is great. You don't, just because you get pre-approved up to amount doesn't mean you have to spend up to the amount. It's just telling you what you could spend up to. Now, oftentimes a lot of people don't want to do this step first, or they wait to do this step. They start searching for homes and trying to find the perfect house first. And here's why that is a bad idea. When you get pre-approved, one, in order to put a offer in on a house, you have to have a pre-approval. A seller isn't going to entertain your offer. They're not going to accept your offer unless you have a lender or a bank saying this person can actually afford and we are going to give them a loan, after doing some further verifications. So you can't buy a house without it anyway. Secondly, you start wasting your time and potentially setting your expectations higher than they should be. If you in your mind think, hey, I am okay with this monthly payment, but when you go get pre-approved, you can only get pre-approved up that's, a lower payment, maybe significantly lower. The type of houses that you're going to see are going to be very different. And if you get your heart set on those different houses and then you have to change it and start searching for houses that actually could be a reality or within your budget, it can be deflating and demoralizing and just not super fun to have to try to get excited about those houses now. So by doing this first, you kind of prevent that from happening. Find out what the loan amount that you can get and then start searching for homes. And by doing that too, you're not wasting other people's times by, searching for homes that ultimately you can't afford or buy in the first place. You're wasting your time by doing that, and you're wasting other people's time. And so it's very important to do this up front, because let's say you give all the information and the lender or the bank says, unfortunately, we can't give you a loan currently. What they're going to do is they're going to tell you what are the next steps to eventually get you to a place where you can be qualified. So that could include things like increasing your credit. What could you do to increase your credit? Maybe it's paying down debts or increasing your income. They're going to give you a plan of attack that you can start working towards. Now, maybe it takes 3 months to do those things. Maybe it takes a year or a year and a half. Now, if you wait and put this off, the longer that you wait and find that information out, so if you wait a year, most likely this is going to be true in a year from now. And so if you start the process then, and let's say it takes another year, you're now 2 years out from being able to purchase your home. Whereas if you do it today, get started, find out this information, and then you can start taking the necessary steps to get to the place where you can be qualified. So it's going to be so much more helpful if you get this information up front. And I know it can be uncomfortable to talk about your finances, or maybe you're just not confident, or sometimes people get embarrassed about, maybe you have a lot of debt or things like that. Just get over it. I know that might seem a little harsh, but there's a lot of people in the same situation as you. You're not the first person to have that situation. And so by talking with a lender, you're now taking proactive steps to how do I, if I'm not happy with this situation, how can I change it, and what can I do right now today to start working on it? So that is what you are going to want to do to be able to start this process sooner and get to where you ultimately are trying to go. So that's what it looks like getting pre-approved and why we want to do it. Here are some financing terms that I'm not going to go through all of these, but these are things you might hear. I'm just going to go through prepayment. What is that? Well, this is when you pay off your mortgage loan faster by making prepayments. It can often reduce the amount of interest payable. I think if you pay an extra loan payment every year, it can reduce your loan by, I think, about 7 years, give or take, roughly. And so that extra payment goes 100% to the principal of the loan. Oftentimes, early in the loan, you're basically just paying interest on the loan, so the loan amount isn't decreasing a lot. And so if you make that extra payment, that goes 100% to the principal and reduces that loan amount sooner and faster. And then you have to pay less interest over time. So that's an example of what these terms are. You can read through them yourself if you care to know what those are. Okay, we have gotten pre-approved. The lender's given us an amount that we are pre-approved up to. What do we do now? Well, we're going to start looking for homes that fall within that budget. There's a few ways we can do this. Now, of course, there's going to be things like Zillow or Realtor.com, which maybe you're already on. Again, I'd encourage you to pause that if you haven't been pre-approved yet. But you're more than welcome to use those resources, but here's why you may not want to. So Zillow and Realtor.com, all those websites like that, are not connected to the MLS, which stands for the Multiple Listing Service. What the MLS is a place where brokers in every state, but I am in Minnesota, so every broker in Minnesota submits their listings to the MLS, and then everybody, all the realtors, a part of that, get access to that information. And so I can set up a search on the MLS through it's called One Home, and only I can set that up for you. You can't do it yourself. You need a realtor to do that for you. And when you do that, it's going to have the most accurate and up-to-date information possible. So that is usually the best way to have homes, and I can get super detailed. I can draw in just a specific neighborhood if you want just one neighborhood. There's lots of different criteria that we can set to, whether, if you only want a 3-bedroom and anything less than that, or if you want 3-bedroom and anything more than that. So we can get super specific on the details and the type of search that we want to have. We can have it for townhouses, one for condos. We could have all of those in the same search. So it's a super powerful way. Now that is going to be great for desktop. You can access it on your phone as well, or it will be through your email and you can click it and then it opens it up in Safari or Chrome or wherever you use to search on the web. It's just not the most user-friendly and easiest way to search. I do have people that they just use it and they're fine with it. So if you don't like that experience, I also have an app that is connected to the MLS as well called HomeSpotter. Again, you can only get access to this through a realtor, and my QR code here, you can scan that and download the app. And here you have the ability to kind of set some of your own criteria and search in whatever areas. The One Home search, I have to edit it if you want to make changes to it. It's not a big deal, it only takes a couple minutes, but you can't unfortunately make those edits yourself. On HomeSpotter, you will be able to. Additionally, if you want as well, I also have a personal website through my broker EXP that you can search through homes, and this is great for both mobile and desktop. I have the QR code there that you can scan to do that, or you can shoot me an email and I'll send you a link to do that, or you can tell me what you want and I can set up that search there for you too. Finally, again, if you prefer to use Zillow or Realtor.com or things like that, you can of course use that as well. Just know that some of the information, the homes that you might send over and are interested in, might already accepted an offer because it is not the most up-to-date information. So that is the second step. We are going to be searching for homes and trying to find one that you are excited about and excited enough that you want to go see it in person, which leads us to step number 3. Before we get there, in this document, I have some places where you can write out, just if you're a person that likes to process things and get it on paper, what location you're looking in, home type, budget, time frame, starting to write these things out and narrow down what it is you're looking for. And again, the home buyer wish list is what I call it, where you list out your beds, baths, what are things that are crucial, whether it's a driveway or garage, how many parking spots you need, and write out other needs that the home has to have and other things that it would be nice if it had it, but it's not a deal breaker. So as you find a home that you love and you're like, it's time to go see what this is like in person, because oftentimes, as you'll find, pictures can be misleading. Sometimes for the worse, you go see a house and the pictures made it look way better. And I've also experienced the opposite, where the pictures didn't do it justice. And so that's why going to see a house is very, very important. It's going to feel differently. It's a much different experience than looking at it online. Online gives us the ability to save our time to just go, we can get a general sense to go, is this house even worth seeing? And based on that, then we can determine whether we want to go see it in person. Once you do, you reach out to me, you send me the house address or the MLS number, and then I set up a showing. While we are on the showing, you are going to be looking for, things in the house that you care about: the layout, the finishes, the neighborhood, the area, all of that type of stuff. What I'm going to be looking at is things like the roof, the windows, the AC, the furnace, determining what condition they're in, because all of those are major fixes. Roofs can cost $10,000+, windows can be $1,000 plus each, furnace and AC can cost $10,000+ to replace both of those. So those are major deals. And if you have to replace all of those shortly after moving in, it could maybe bankrupt you or be a not a great thing. And so my job and what at the showing, what I'm trying to do is determine what are the state of those things. Now, I'm not an inspector. I can't give you the most accurate, or I'm not like the best person to give you information, but I have been on enough inspections and I've toured enough homes that I can give you a general sense of, is this a problem that we need to look into further, or does it look okay? And so that's what I'm going to be trying to do. Point out the good, the bad, the ugly, and so that way you can make a decision whether you want to take on a home that might be a bit more of a project, or is this home move-in ready that you shouldn't have to do anything when you actually close on the house. The next thing is we are going to go see houses, and sometimes you might only have one that you want to see. Just know that it's not a waste of time to reach out to your realtor and go just see one house. If you end up buying the house, or if that's the house, if you decided not to and passed on it because you're like, I'm going to wait till another one pops up that I'm excited about, you might have missed out on what could have been a home that you would have loved for many, many years. And so I don't want that to happen to you. So just know, if there's only one house you want to see, it's not a waste of time. Reach out, let's go see it. On the flip side of that, if you want to see lots of homes, I don't show more than 5 in one day. And that's because when you start seeing more homes, they all kind of start blending together, and it's hard to remember which house had the walk-in closet and which house had the master bathroom that you loved. It all blends together. And so if you want to see more than 5 homes, we'll do a couple one day and do a few the next day to split it up and give you a better opportunity to keep track of which homes actually have what amenities and things like that, and which ones you actually like the most. So just keep that in mind. And most realtors probably won't see more than that too. It's a lot of information. And honestly, I've done that a few times, and you just are exhausted afterwards when you're seeing that many homes and trying to process that much information. When it's time to go see these houses and determine whether this is the one for you, I would encourage you to take your time. Think through all of these decisions that is good to process, because this is the biggest financial decision of your life. And you want to make sure you think about things like, if you don't have kids, if we are going to have kids, is this in the school district we want to be in? Is this community that we're in, do we see it, appreciating over time? Is it getting better over time, or do we think it's potentially going to be on the decline? It could make it harder to sell at that point. Do we think that we love this layout and long term it gives us the ability to do what we want, not only in this next year, but in the next 5 years, if you plan to stay there that long? Maybe you're okay and you plan to move in 2 to 3 years again, and so it doesn't matter then. Depending on your situation, you just want to do your best to think through as much as possible without overthinking these things and making it overwhelming. We want to find as much information as we can and make the best decision possible with that information. And to give you a little encouragement, I'm a realtor. I've been through this process many, many times. And when I went to buy my first house a couple years ago, it was still scary. No matter how many times you've been through this, when you're making a several $100,000 purchase, it can be a little scary and you don't want to make the wrong decision. So just know that no matter who you are, there's probably going to be some of that emotion that you're going to feel, and it's going to be a roller coaster of an emotional journey. There's going to be excitement, nervousness, you might be overwhelmed, you might be stressed. It's all going to happen, and that's okay. It's a part of the process. But hopefully there's more good days and more excitement than there is all of those other more negative emotions. So once we've found the house that we love, we're excited about it, and we love it so much, it's time to put an offer in. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to work with you to determine what are the things that we want to offer. So things like your sale price, earnest money, which I'm going to talk about what that is in a second, what day we want to close, if there's going to be an inspection, if we're going to ask for the seller to have closing costs included, or if they're going to pay the closing costs for us, if a home warranty plan is going to be provided by the seller, or we're going to buy a home warranty plan, if we need to sell a home in order to buy this one. All of these types of things we're going to determine and write into our offer depending on your situation, and also what the market is allowing us to some degree as well. So we'll do that. I'm going to talk through all that paperwork the first time that we put an offer in, so that way you know exactly what you're signing and what all the documents are. I'm going to also include a pre-approval letter. This will be from the lender saying, hey, we've done the work up front to show that this person can get a loan. There's still some things we got to verify, and there'll be a contingency on financing most likely in the offer. But they are saying, we're very confident that we're going to be able to get financing and close on this home. Then I'm going to also call the realtor, the listing agent, and tell them, what our situation is, what we're thinking. My goal is to let them know that I'm an agent that knows what they're doing. I've been a listing agent, and I've dealt with people and other buyers agents who it's very obvious they have no clue what they're doing. Either they're very early on in the business, or they just have a personality that maybe isn't meant for this line of work. And when you have a bad realtor, it can derail a deal. And, there's things that need to happen at certain points. And if they aren't someone that can get those things done and keep things on track, a deal can fall apart because of it. And I've worked on several deals that have been just nightmares, and super hard things have come up, and had not only I, but the listing agent also been someone who is competent and knows what they're doing, where we have to work in tandem to make this deal happen. And so when you have people who don't know what they're doing, it matters. And so that is my goal, is early on is to communicate that to the listing agent so that they feel confident when we submit our offer, that if there's a comparable offer and that agent isn't doing a good job communicating or presenting themselves, that hopefully they would tell their seller to work with us. And I've been on the listing agent on that side where that situation's happened, and there was an agent that I was like, this person's way better than the other person. And so I said, we should work with this offer because they were pretty much comparable. So that is what I'm going to be doing. And then I'm also going to be trying to get as much information as they will tell me. Their confidentiality is with the seller, so they're not going to tell us a lot of information. But if I can get as much as I can to help us, if we're competing in multiple offers, make sure that we can get something that is intriguing and enticing to the seller, or just help us, make the best offer that is appropriate for the situation. And then, yes, I'm going to be working with you to determine pricing, and I'm going to look at what is all sold in the neighborhood recently to determine what's an appropriate price to be paying for this. If it's, if they've listed super low and there's multiple offers, how high is it going to appraise for potentially, or do we think it's worth to go to? If there aren't any offers, it's been on the market a decent amount of time, do we need to come in at list price? Can we come in a bit lower? I'm going to help you determine what is the best route depending on the situation. And then determining the closing timeline and figuring that all out. And then I can work with you. If you want to submit a note to the seller, You don't have to do this. If some people like to, we have to be careful about what we can and can't say in that. We want to keep it specifically about the home and not yourself. But just saying, why you love the home and specific things about that is something we can also include in our offer, and hopefully is a nice touch for the seller. So that is what we'll be doing when we work on submitting an offer. And then once it is accepted by the seller, we are now under contract. And when we get to this point, what we have to do is get through these different phases of the offer that we submitted to get it to closing. And these are what we call contingencies. So we're going to submit our offer contingent on certain things like an inspection, like the sale of a home, like financing. Lead-based paint is a contingency. If you're offering on a townhome or condo, that you can get 10 days to review those documents and determine if the HOA has rules that, for instance, you have a dog and the HOA doesn't allow dogs. You find that out, you can make your offer contingent on getting all that information and making sure you're good with it all. So we have to get through all of those contingencies that we wrote into the offer that are applicable, and that is what we're going to start working on. So the first two that happen right away are earnest money, which earnest money is a sum of money. I'm going to scroll down here so you can see this. Earnest money is a sum of money that you give to the seller, so that way you can't just walk away for no good reason. Let's say 2 weeks before we're getting ready to close and we've gotten past all of these contingencies, so there are no contingencies left, we're ready to close, and you find a different house that you love more. And you go, you know what? I want to back out of this deal. I want to go buy that house. Well, that would put the seller in a pretty bad spot because they would have to go through this whole process again. And so that's why they put this into place, is what's called earnest money. It's like an engagement ring saying, hey, we're serious about this offer and we're not going to just leave for no good reason. And so if you were to do that, if you were to leave, go buy a different house, the seller would get to keep that earnest money. Typically, it's 1% of the sale price. So if you buy a $300,000 house, it's $3,000. You get to choose what that amount is. So you can, if you're trying to get a more competitive offer, increasing that amount can be more attractive to the seller. Now, that sum of money is not additional payment to the seller. It is just a prepayment get put in in a escrow account that will turn into your down payment at closing. So if it goes to closing, that sum of money turns into your down payment. So if you have a $10,000 down payment, you would subtract that $3,000 you submitted, and you would have to bring an additional $7,000 at closing. Hopefully that makes sense. So now, when can you get earnest money back? Is when you have a good reason, or in other words, a contingency that you had in the offer that you can use to back out. So let's say you have an inspection contingency. In the inspection, the roof is bad, the AC and furnace don't work. There's a bunch of like big item tickets that are going to have to be replaced or fixed. And you determine, this changes my desire to buy the house. I don't want to buy it anymore. I want to back out. Well, then you would get your earnest money back because you had the inspection contingency. That's a good reason you can back out. Same thing with any of those other contingencies. You can use those to back out of the deal and get your earnest money back to you. Okay. Then the next step will be an inspection. So you'll have 48 hours to submit earnest money. You'll do that. Inspection is usually 7 to 10 days, depending on the market. Sometimes it will be shorter, usually as short as 3 days, but right now the standard is 7 to 10 days. So in that 7 to 10 days, you have to get the inspection done and any negotiations based upon that inspection that you want to do. So again, in that same example, let's say the roof and the furnace and AC aren't working. That changes your desire to purchase the property. You can do a couple things. You could say, hey, seller, you need to fix this before we close and be ready to move. If they agree to it, then you can move on and you're good to go. You could say, hey, seller, I want to lower the purchase price to accommodate for, these items that I'm going to have to pay for. Or you could ask them to cover closing costs, which would mean you'd have to bring less money to closing. And so then you'd have a little more cash to, make these fixes. So you could say, hey, you need to cover $10,000 of my closing costs because, these things need to be fixed. And if you aren't able to come to an agreement on what needs to be done, then you would back out, get your earnest money back. If you do get to agreement, then you move past that inspection contingency. So let's say the inspection went well, we're good to go. We move on to the next step. Well, then we're going to remove any other contingencies like I talked about. So this would be things like financing, a home sale if, you're selling your home, well and septic if it's in a rural place. You'll want to get inspections on the well and the septic system, making sure that those are in good condition. Homes prior to 1978 would oftentimes have lead paint in the home, which can be toxic and, have bad things happen to your health if you breathe that in. And so if you want, you can have someone come and test the paint in the home to see if it is lead-based paint. You don't have to do that. It is something you can do. And like I talked about too, there's HOA documents that you can review. And usually for townhouses and condos, you have 10 days to review those documents. And if there's something that you aren't happy with, you could back out and get your earnest money back. But if all of those things check out, then we move on to the appraisal. What is this? So this is something that's done to determine the value of the home. It's done by a neutral third-party person who is going to come in and look at all the comparables in the neighborhood and give a value that the home is worth. And the lender can only give you a loan up to that amount. So let's say you buy a $300,000 house and the home gets appraised for $290,000. Well, you have a $10,000 gap there. So there's 3 or 4 things that can be done. The first is you, the buyer, pay that $10,000 out of pocket. So that would be in addition to your down payment and closing costs, you would pay another $10,000. Now you might say, I don't want to do that. So then the other option would be for the seller to reduce the sale price to $290,000, and now we're good to go. Now, if the seller won't do that, the next option would be to split the difference, or you say, hey, I'll pay $2,000 out of pocket, seller come down $8,000, or you meet in the middle, or whatever that might be. You negotiate what those terms are and come to an agreement for that. Finally, the last option would be if you can't come to an agreement and work those terms out, both parties can back out of the deal, go their separate ways, and you get your earnest money back. So that is usually the last step. It usually takes a few weeks for the appraisal to be done and to get that passed. Now, what happens if the appraisal is more than what you offered? Well, that's a great situation because it means your home is worth more than what you're paying for it. So nothing needs to happen. It's just you have more equity in your home, which is a great situation. And I've had that happen several times. So we've gone through all of the steps and contingencies that needed to happen, and we are clear to close. What happens now? Well, we are going to make sure that we don't make any big purchases. Why does this matter? Well, because if you were to do this, this could change your DTI, your debt to income ratio, and it could cause the lender to not be able to give you a loan anymore. Thankfully, it's never happened to one of my clients, but I've heard stories where this has happened. And it's very disappointing when you are getting ready to buy this house and you've found the one and you're ready to do it. And then a few days before closing, they see that you purchased a car or you purchased a very large piece of furniture and it changes your ability to get a loan. You don't want that happening. So make sure that if you're going to make a big purchase, do it after you have closed on the home. I can't stress that enough. No purchases from the time of getting an offer accepted or really getting pre-approved until you actually close on the house. So we're ready for closing day. What's going to happen? Well, 24 hours prior to closing, we're going to do what's called a walkthrough. This is where we're going to go walk through the home and make sure it is in like condition as to when we first saw it. So we're going to make sure a window didn't get broken when the sellers were moving out. There isn't a hole in the wall. A tree didn't somehow fall on the roof, or a branch that damaged it. Things like that. We just want to make sure the home is in the same condition. Once we do that, we'll also take a picture there, typically a selfie with you, and also a picture with the sold sign commemorating the moment. And then if this is happening the same day as closing, we'll head right over to the title office and get ready to close. If it's the day before, or the evening before, then we'll wait till the next day, and that's when we will meet at the title agent's office to start signing the paperwork. Here, you'll need to bring your government ID. They'll tell you which you can bring. Usually it's a passport or license or social security, things like that. And you'll need to bring your, you'll need to wire the money or a cashier's check to give the down payment and closing costs, so that way they can fund the loan. At the closing, you're going to meet with the title agent, usually your realtor, whether it's me or a different one is going to be there. And then oftentimes a lender might stop by as well. You're going to sign all of the documents. It takes about 30 minutes to 60 minutes to do all that. Then the title agent is going to send that over to the lender. The lender is going to fund the loan and send over those funds to the seller. And at that point, it is official. You are a homeowner. At that time, then you usually get the keys, and you can most likely immediately start to move in, or head from there to move into the house. Sometimes there's situations where the seller might rent back the home for 24, 48 hours, so you wouldn't be able to move in for a day or two, so that way they can finish moving out depending on the situation. Most of the time, though, you're going to be able to immediately possess the home. Then, once you have done all of this, you've officially become a homeowner. Woohoo! It is now time to move in. Now, if you've done this plenty of times, this may not matter to you or not be helpful, but if you haven't, here's some things to be thinking about. If you're going to move yourself, start asking people to help once you get an accepted offer, and you're going to know when your close date is and when you're going to need to be moving in. So start getting help. The more hands, the better. Many hands make light work. I live by that saying. It's so true. So start recruiting people to help. So you want to get everything packed in boxes prior to moving day. Don't be, packing things up while people are there trying to move you. It's a bad look. It makes the day so much more stressful. And if you can, and you're willing to invest in plastic boxes like from Costco, it can make the move so much easier. You can put more weight in them. They're more durable. They'll last you hopefully for the rest of your life. So each, move that you have later on, you can continue to use those. It's a little bit of an investment, so if you prefer to just use boxes, you can do that. But I strongly recommend being able to, or making that investment, getting plastic bins from Costco or even Marketplace. You can find good deals on there. Make sure you clearly label each box too. This will make, when you get to the next house, it's going to make it so much easier and simpler, and it will help people put it in the right place rather than them just dumping it, in the front entry area, and then you have to get it to the right room. If you label it for the correct room, it's going to make that process so much easier. And then, of course, if you have people helping, make sure you have some snacks and beverages and things to provide for them. Oftentimes people are doing this for free in the goodness of their heart. So this is a way to just be grateful for that and show them your gratefulness. And they're burning a lot of calories, so keeping them well fed is a good idea. Finally, make sure you reserve your truck right away. I recommend Penske. I've found that U-Haul and things like that, sometimes you show up and they don't actually have the truck there. Penske, I think, guarantees their truck being in person. I've never had an issue with them, and I think their trucks are usually taken care of a little better. So that's who I recommend, but whoever you use, just get that booked sooner than later, so that way you're not scrambling a couple days prior to moving. If you're going to hire movers, and I have a mover I recommend in my referral list, you want to call them as soon as you get an accepted offer to get on their calendars. Again, if you need to cancel it, if something falls through in the deal, you can do that, but get booked as soon as possible so that way you can get the date that you want. Have all your boxes packed, just like if you're doing it yourself, and labeled clearly so that way they can have it going to the right room, or you can know which room it's going to. And then in the new house, I'd strongly recommend creating labels and titles for each room so that way everything gets put into its appropriate spot. And if it's clearly labeled in the boxes, the movers will get it to the right and correct place. Now, this last thing, you don't have to do this. Again, I recommend providing them food and beverages, keeping them hydrated. This is not an easy job, and if you keep these guys happy, hopefully they'll be more incentivized to do a good job and, you know, be as careful as they can be moving big, heavy things upstairs to not nick the walls or doors, things like that. Of course, they're hopefully trying to do that in the first place, but it never hurts to incentivize a little more by keeping them happy. So that's a little bit of moving. I have a checklist here that hopefully can be helpful to you to be thinking about, 4 to 6 weeks as you're preparing, and 3 to 4 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, 1 week before move-in, all the things that you want to be thinking about and starting to do and get done so you're ready the day of moving. And once you've moved, you are officially a homeowner, and I want to celebrate this milestone with you if you were to use me to help with this process. And so I take all of my clients out to a celebratory dinner. We find a restaurant of your choice and we go celebrate together. And finally, here I have some referral partners that I recommend, lenders, inspectors, a moving company, title company, home services, things that you might want to start doing to the home, people that can help, electrician, plumber, things like that. And here I also have some frequently asked questions that you can walk through and see if there's maybe questions that you have as well. These are things people usually ask me. And so I've gone through and answered those here. So hopefully that can be helpful. Here is our recent milestones of clients we've been helping reach their milestones. And that is it. That is our home buyer guide. I hope that this information has been helpful. I know it's a lot. And of course, if you are ready to start the home buying process, you don't need to have this all memorized. When you're working with a trusted realtor, they're going to help you through each step and guide you through each step. And there's more details and situations that can occur or arise that I didn't cover today that they're going to be able to walk you through and help you navigate. So if you like seeing videos like this, and if you found this helpful, it would mean a lot to me if you could hit that subscribe button and like this video, so that way you can see more future videos like it to help you learn more about real estate and the market in Minnesota. So thanks for watching, and always keep in mind that whether this is your first home that you're trying to buy or your fifth, I'm Ryan Temmel, and I am here to help you reach your next real estate milestone.